The Major is nearly here, and that means that the best part of the year is also not far off. We're referring to the post-Major Shuffle, obviously. The only thing more exciting than watching Counter-Strike is imagining what new teams we can cook up and what they'll play like in our own personal headcanons. However, before the post-Major Shuffle, we have the pre-post-Major Shuffle. It's like how before you go out drinking, you start pre-drinking in your house. I'm not an alcoholic, I swear. Because some big name teams are already completely out of the major cycle before it even really started, we're getting some big boy moves in the preview. You know when film trailers put all the funny bits in the trailer and you think you might ruin the whole film by the time you watch it? We're just saying that if the rest of the shuffle does have a move quite like this first one, we'll be bloody excited. There's no name in Counter-Strike that rivals Simple in terms of star power, heritage and, well, excitement. His departure from the scene was understandably a huge loss for all of us, not least those of us looking to get YouTube views. Thankfully for us, he is back. The King, the Undertaker, the GOAT, the man of many names and even more accolades. Simple is back, and it's not on Na'Vi. Simple is, at least on loan, at Falcons. Boros was ousted, and it probably went something a bit like that Naught conversation when NIP signed Device. Boros was a little scapegoated for Falcons' major failures, somewhat fairly but perhaps also a little unfairly, but he can't really argue when the replacement is Simple. Simple, by the way, won't be the main AWPer. Sunpius remains on the cannon, with Simple moving back to a rival role. This is a short-term loan deal, with Falcons reportedly paying a very silly amount of money, but sometimes, you just have to rent a supercar for a day. And anyway, it's not like it wouldn't work. Like, they couldn't, lose in the first round of Blast Showdown and pay 15k a round or something for the one official that the loan could. Ninjas in Pyjamas weren't very good in the RMR. I know we're not supposed to be outright mean to teams in these videos, but NIP would be the first to admit they were under par. It was clear as soon as that 0-3 game finished that changes were afoot, but the gravity of them hadn't quite hit yet. Of the 6 people in the server for NIP at the RMR, only 2 remain ninjas after all is said and done. Config, Esatag again, Hedrick and DJL have all been cast aside, with their replacements as of yet unnamed. In the meantime, they've been playing their academy team, who, to be fair, did about as well as Simple's Falcons at Showdown. Nothing has been said about where the outgoing players might end up just yet, but one imagines they'll find a new team in due time. Speaking of not being very good at the RMR, Astralis have now gone 3 majors without turning up at one, which is a far cry from the time they won 3 in a row, to put it mildly. Such an organisation cannot take that reputation hit, funnily enough. Well, unless said organisation is Manchester United, in which case Ten Hag stays at the wheel. Despite treading on some toes to get Yabians down, Astralis fell short again, and they made the only change they hadn't yet tried. It's blameF's turn to face the metaphorical guillotine. Big arms and bigger stats were not enough to save him this time, and the IGL has fallen on his sword, leaving Device to take up the mantle of leading, and Bro coming in to fill blameF's probably giant shoes. Bro is an understated but very intelligent player. He might not be as dominant as blameF, but could be a quality counterweight to Astralis' litany of stars. It is a brave move, but something had to change. In even sadder news, it seems the whole organisation of Greyhound has gone the way of the dodo, or evil geniuses, following major disappointment. The sticker money was likely going to power the organisation until the next major cycle, and the sticker money was about the only thing that made staying in esports possible for Mr. Greyhound. And with that out of the question, they have, unfortunately, had to shut their doors on CS2. On the bright side, that means for any org wanting to get in on Aussie CS, you can get some of the best players in the region for next to nothing. As one door shuts, a window opens, or when one glass smashes, you weirdos start drinking out of a shoe for some reason. It's the same concept. TYLOO also failed to make the major in the same region, but their response was the exact opposite. They're going to sign even more players. TYLOO actually have more players benched than they do in their active squad. We joked about Manchester United earlier, but TYLOO actually have 11 players on their team. They could at least give Man U a game. Lyrics 3 and ZDR are in for Kaze and Advent, with Mosaic coming back in for Orman. That should at least be a firepower upgrade, as smart as Advent is, he hasn't been fragging recently. NRG wasted no time in changing their team after a pretty terrible showing in the Americas RMR. and the immediacy in finding a replacement is probably testament to just how weak they looked. Walco and Automatic are joining the roster with Fang and Daps leaving, which might come as quite a shock to many. Fang is a very talented player, but he hasn't quite hit the heights we know he's capable of and perhaps needed a change of scenery. Daps has a wealth of experience, but maybe his time as a player has passed now, which he himself admitted. We're sure Fang will land on his feet somewhere, he's too good to not find a spot somewhere. Into the Breach are once more making changes with Bemis, Masuta and Thomas all bench, leaving just Roland and Crucial. After the highs of Paris and finally giving UKCS a name that isn't based on saying naughty words, being terrible at the game, or even worse, being the Rat King, Into the Breach tried something different and, well, it didn't really work. Whether they'll go back to an English core or continue with the international experiment isn't yet public knowledge, and we're not sure lightning will ever strike twice for those of a God Save the King persuasion. We can dream though. Finally, Grasshog has joined 500 and Crew, if I've said that correctly, have picked up a full Argentinian roster that includes Reversive. This is merely a taster of what is to come after the Major. Every year it feels like Rostermania gets more and more insane, and this one promises to be wild. What's your dream move this roster season? Let us know in the comments below.